what quantum science is telling us is we find what we're looking for, period. Because we're looking for it, we actually influence the outcome of the experiment. And so this has just, baffled the world of physics and Newtonian law and the world of cause and effect, and the fact that we're here living in this world and we think we're supposed to be fitting into it and adapting to it, when all the while what's been held from us is the understanding that we're actually mastering it. We're actually in charge of it. We're actually determining our reality based on what we're looking for. We are assuming that it's this, and so it is. We're assuming that because our parents were this way and their parents were this way and their parents were this way, that that's what's in store for us. But because we're assuming it, we're behaving as if that's what we're looking for. It's an instruction that we're offering, this quantum field, and the quantum field is gathering into the patterns to make it so. It literally is this way. These tiny little packets called photons arrange based upon what we're thinking. If we start thinking in a particular fashion, they arrange in a certain pattern. If we think differently, they arrange in a different pattern. And so this really shows us that we are literally have the opportunity to operate as the healer, as the creator, to a much greater degree than we have been taught.
You're listening to Practical Spirituality with B, the podcast with spiritual advice for your everyday life, helping you align with your soul so you can live with purpose, fulfillment, and magic. I'm Bernadette Logue. You can call me B, and I'm excited to share this episode with you.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Dr. Sue Morter. We're going to be talking about the power of your consciousness to heal your body and heal your life. Before we dive right in, I'm going to share a little bit about Dr. Sue. So Dr. Sue is a renowned international speaker, master of bioenergetic medicine, and a pioneer in quantum field exploration. Leveraging high-frequency energy patterns, she unlocks the complete spectrum of human potential. With over 3 decades of clinical experience and a transformative awakening during meditation, Dr. Sue has developed visionary models and techniques redefining living in creative genius and personal freedom. She is the best-selling author of The Energy Codes, the 7-step system to awaken your spirit, heal your body, and live your best life. She's also the founder of the globally taught coursework, The Energy Codes, and the creator of the Body Awake certified yoga program. So with all of that said, let's welcome Dr. Sue for this powerful conversation about your consciousness and healing your body and healing your life. Welcome along and welcome to our special guest, Dr. Sue Morter. Thank you for being with us.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure to be here. I enjoy deep conversations that talk about what matters most in life. So I look forward to where we get to go today.
Beautiful. So for people in my community that don't know Dr. Sue, when you wonder who I listen to intently for wisdom that I need in my life, the answer is Dr. Sue. So Dr. Sue doesn't necessarily know this about me, but during a very difficult period in my life a couple of years ago, I've on your work for a long time, but there was a month where you were in my ear every morning, every walk with my dog, every night, as I listened to Fear and Fire. And it awakened and kept my soul going during a very difficult time, as well as your awakening, the Healer Within meditations, and central channel breathing, and all the good things that you do. So I'm very personally grateful for your work. I wondered if you could maybe share with people actually the background that brought you to this work, the environment you grew up in, and the meditation experience that you had that was like an awakening for you before we dive in, and then talk about the current day and the work around the power of our consciousness to heal our bodies.
Sure. So, I very honestly came upon this whole conversation and this way of being. I was born into a family where my father was a pioneer in energy medicine, and he was very interested in the relationship between how people healed and when they didn't heal and what was happening, and the relationship with their thoughts and their beliefs and their come from in life, the amount of unresolved emotion that was within them that was keeping them from healing. And he really developed some beautiful healing approaches to natural health care one of which is bioenergetic synchronization technique that I teach and carry on. Now, I was raised in all of that, and it was quantum science that we were talking about at the dinner table. It was, the relationship between our thoughts creating our reality on the inside and in the outer world. And yet I also had to, as we all do, had to go through my own initiation into the experience of that reality, not just knowing about it. It isn't enough for us to study about things, to read about them. We have to draw ourselves deeply internal and live into these things that we are learning about. And today, people teach more. I certainly put an effort in teaching more about practices of application to soften that gap between the intellectual understanding of something and then our living into that experience, so that we can bridge that gap and allow it to be more readily accessible and available and easier to implement for everyone. So I was raised in that environment, and I also carried a lot of stress in my life. I had these intellectual understandings, but when I looked into the outer world, it didn't match what I was feeling on the inside. And that discrepancy was inherently determined to it brings us all into this a choice point. We either decide that the world is wrong or that we're wrong. And people do one or the other. People become bullies and push themselves onto others, or they retract and they recede and they, kind of shut down internally in forms or in facets of their lives. And so I was very much the internalization, shut down, step back and be an observer in the world instead of, coming forth with what I knew, what I felt, or what I was drawn to express. So that doesn't work either. That imbalance, no matter which one we're living into, creates a real disruption and a disharmony in our life experience. And so for me, it started creating migraine headaches, and here I was, a super performer, trying to be a good person, a good daughter, a good doctor, a good citizen, and on and on and on. And it's a very stressful way of living, and it just doesn't work. So I was drawn to meditation in order to relieve my headaches, was why I stepped into that world, so I thought. And I instantly started having transcendental experiences and transformational perceptions of reality and who we were and what's really going on here. And it just started unfolding for me rapidly. And it was all self-induced. It wasn't, the ayahuasca journey. It wasn't any psychotropic stuff. It was just happening. And I was really glad that it happened that way, because I knew that it meant that it was my time and that it was right and it was okay, even though I thought I was losing my mind, because things weren't at all what I had thought. So in all of that, I instantly started having these transcendental experiences, and I awakened in ways that I knew were of another realm. And the felt sensation was so glorious and so profoundly perfect. Like, it was wholly whole. I was not missing anything or lacking anything or trying to become anything or trying to be anything. It was completely that I was this beacon of light, this presence of light. And I was a ray of light. I could see myself extending. I was exalted so high, I was extending down to the earth. And every time I took a breath, this brilliant light that I could see in every direction, this beautiful pink translucent horizon would rise and fall, separating it from this bright light, a brilliant light separated from a bright light by this pink blanket of light. And it felt like love. And I knew that what was happening was this light was truly becoming love as it passed down through my system and was kind of feeding the planet. And I knew that this was true about every one of us in that moment. I could see across the horizon, and I was aware that others were doing the same thing, that it was just that. And most importantly, I was satiated and fulfilled, and I knew my wholeness beyond the shadow of a doubt. And so as I, fell down back into my body and into the room and looked around, I knew that my life was changed forever, but I didn't know how it would apply. So I spent the next 5 years trying to figure out how to, implement and integrate and how to teach my patients something from what I had experienced. And I began teaching what became the energy codes, because as I would share these things with my patients and clients, they would heal faster, and they would stay better longer, and their lives were transforming. And so I knew that I was on to something, and that this was going to chart the path of the rest of my life, because of the impact that it had on me, and that it has now had on hundreds of thousands of other people who have really leaned in and studied the work with me. So it's been an amazing and most beautiful journey.
I love this. And so, really, this awakening where people think, oh, spiritual awakening and then healing over here, or spirituality and health over here. Your work is actually about this deep connection, right? So, do you want to just talk a little to the awakening, and the meaning of that in the context of healing? And I know a lot of people come to you that want physical healing, but also people who just want emotional healing. They want a healed, holy, whole life, as you call it. So, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question, and one that needs to be bridged for our humanity. We think that it's two different aspects of life, and the fact that we separate them is part of the problem. That when we allow our deep spiritual truth to be the healer within, even our authenticity to be the healer within, even our deepening our relationship with Source, and not to the degree that it's not even a relationship with Source, but that we merge with Source and become part of that, the face of that, or the voice of this presence that is life itself. And that's what people are usually pursuing with a spiritual inquiry. And then they turn that down, and they set that down and come over here and try to heal their headaches or their back pain or their digestive problems, allergies, asthma, chronic degenerative diseases. And we need to pull those together if we really want to allow this healer to awaken, because the healer within, which is innate intelligence, it's inborn that we are to self regenerate, to rejuvenate and replenish and restore and to heal. And if we're not healing, there's a reason for that. And it has to do with how we're running energy through our system, how we're separating things out, and how we're weakening the process because we compartmentalize the presence of the whole self. And so if we want to heal, we have to allow that same vulnerability and devotion and upliftment that is associated with a spiritual practice or a connection with nature, or some sort of, whomever or whatever we would pray to. If we're going to heal, we have to allow the receiving of that prayer being answered to happen right into our physical system. And to do that, we have to realize that the moment that we ask, it is given. That there isn't someone there standing and deciding, yeah, you're worthy. No, you're not worthy. No, we're not delivering for you today. Oh, yes, we'll have extra for you because you've been extra good. We've created a scenario that is nearly impossible to live inside, which is why so many people are in so much pain, spiritual crisis, healing crisis, mental, emotional crises, all because we're creating these separations of the parts, the pieces and parts of us. And so everyone has experienced this. Someone will say, a part of me wants to go and do this, and a part of me is just afraid to do it. A part of me knows that what she's saying right now is true. It rings true in my body. But another part of me is wants to be confused about this because it doesn't match up with other things that I've been taught or have learned or have studied or practiced, for the majority of my life. And so those parts have to come together if we ever want to experience wholeness. So the fact that you're asking this question about what's the relationship between our spiritual practice or our spiritual understanding and healing is everything. The relationship is one thing. It is completely overlaid. If we really want to be healing, we have to allow the same version of us that would allow ourselves to ask and allow the idea that we could receive. We have to allow that same version of us to be what's approaching healing. We have to open up the channels and recognize that there are limiting beliefs that are keeping us from allowing it to be directly applied to the area of our life that needs healing or that we perceive as needing healing. And we have to allow for this integration to occur. So the things that I'm teaching the world every day are how to build the circuitry for those two parts of us to become reunited, how to build the neurocircuitry, how to build the electromagnetic energy flowing connection, that circuitry that will allow the communication to be received into the parts of us that have been feeling left behind or left out, or are feeling or perceived as separate and having to wait for something to be delivered. It's really a matter of the role of the mind when it comes to the distinction between spirit and physical healing, is the role of the mind. The mind has to soften, the mind has to open, because it is what is creating the division between the two. And as we're now discovering that we need to soften our mind and allow it to accept and receive more, we find that the vibration that allows that to happen, that catalyzes that more than anything, is the vibration of an unconditional love. That there is a love vibration that needs to be present in the body in an ongoing fashion if we want to soften the system, soften the mind enough to allow the receptivity that we think we need, that we're asking for. Just lastly, I'll say that so many people have reported, over the years that it's in a deep state of crisis that they have these big openings. It's in a deep state of surrender in the midst of crisis that allows for healing. And we think about this, the idea of spiritual healing. What is that? And it is when the mind is focused in a certain way and surrenders, and something else can rush through. And that thing that rushes through is a loving presence of some sort, whether someone's assigning that to God or the divine or some angelic assistance or their guides or some healer from beyond, or some deep miracle that has occurred. What is happening is this greater loving presence is being allowed to infuse itself into more aspects of our system, more parts of our whole. And a byproduct of that is we heal. So
in the crises and the challenges and the dark night of the soul, when your mind has run out of all answers and has grappled for so long and you're exhausted and you give up, it's in that, like I've had that happen twice, where it's just an utter release for no other reason that I can't run at that brick wall any longer. And then something magical happens. And it's like this process of, in the work that you do, teaching us how to not go to the point where we run against the wall and to release. What I'm really interested in is, so we've got our health and our healing, we've got the divine intelligence within that needs to be, doesn't need anything from us. We are choosing to awaken it within. And we have our spiritual connection, which allows us to do that. Can you put this in the context of quantum energy, and specifically for people that don't understand energy and consciousness and what you're talking about building circuitry, how does the energy consciousness circuitry conversation fit with awakening this intelligence within us for healing?
Beautiful. We are made of energy. The physical body is made of energy. Everything is made of energy. Everything that you'll ever see or ever touch or ever hear or ever experience is energy compressed in different forms and shapes and wave forms and experiences of energy unfolding. All energy is just vibrating in different frequencies, including the human system. So even within the human system, we have different vibrational frequencies. So there's one vibration of energy that is our thoughts, another vibration of our energy that is our emotional body of bandwidth, another vibration that is our physical body, etc. And so if we start unpacking the physical system enough, we start looking at it in smaller and smaller particles. For instance, if we look at the whole system, then we look at the whole body, then we look at systems. If we look at the systems and the organs and the glands that comprise them, if we take an organ and start opening it up and separating it out, we see that it's made of cells that are producing certain chemistries and having its job. And if we take the cell apart, we realize that it's made of little organelles inside the cell. And if we take the little organelles apart, we realize that they're made of molecules and tissue that is molecules and cells put together. And take the cells apart, it's molecules. Take the molecules apart, it's made of atoms. Take the atoms apart, and it's made of subatomic quanta. And now we're looking at the quantum field. We're looking at the layer of observing that is all the way down to the tiniest level that we've been able to physically observe with instrumentation in our world today. So that's the quantum world. Now, the beauty of the quantum world is that we've discovered these particles that are so tiny. They are influenceable by our mind. If we want to know what they're made of, and we set up the equipment to see if they are energy or if they're matter or some combination, what's going on here when we get this small. If we set up the equipment to test if this tiniest particle is a particle, the answer is yes. It will test yes to be a particle of mass. If we set up the equipment to measure if it's energy and operating as a wave of energy would operate or behave, it does the same observable tiny piece of reality. So what quantum science is telling us is we find what we're looking for, period. Because we're looking for it, we actually influence the outcome of the experiment. And so this has just, baffled the world of physics and Newtonian law and the world of cause and effect, and the fact that we're here living in this world and we think we're supposed to be fitting into it and adapting to it, when all the while what's been held from us is the understanding that we're actually mastering it. We're actually in charge of it. We're actually determining our reality based on what we're looking for. We are assuming that it's this, and so it is. We're assuming that because our parents were this way and their parents were this way and their parents were this way, that that's what's in store for us. But because we're assuming it, we're behaving as if that's what we're looking for. It's an instruction that we're offering, this quantum field, and the quantum field is gathering into the patterns to make it so. It literally is this way. These tiny little packets called photons arrange based upon what we're thinking. If we start thinking in a particular fashion, they arrange in a certain pattern. If we think differently, they arrange in a different pattern. And so this really shows us that we are literally have the opportunity to operate as the healer, as the creator, to a much greater degree than we have been taught. The thing is, the subconscious patterns of beliefs that have been so limited for so long and handed down for so many generations, they have embedded themselves or actually created a physical system that is reaffirming it constantly. And so it doesn't mean that we can't transform. It just means that we have to stay devoted. We have to stay clear, open-hearted. We have to be earnestly looking into the world from a place that knows what I'm sharing right now and has committed to allowing something new to be seen inside of all the patterns and habits and the ways that people interact and the ways that we've always interact in our lives. So as we begin to shift that and become devoted to it, meaning we're never not, we're relentless with coming forward with love and coming forward with compassion and coming forward with strength and clarity of our own vision for ourselves and who we are. And it is heartfelt in the body. And if we're building the circuitry within our system, meaning we're allowing the brain to synapse on these new ideas and these new ways of experiencing life, and we're allowing it to memorize new patterns of survival that we don't have to fight in order to win, that maybe we can just win. Maybe there's another way and that we haven't tried on yet. Maybe there are other approaches that we could address for improving our own physical health that we just have never given a chance to. So what I do with the energy codes is show people how to build the circuitry based on a life that is masterful instead of a life that is victimized, and to build that circuitry so that it supports us faster to move into a different role for ourselves in our lives, so that we're not waiting for, the right time, or we're not hoping that we don't make rock the boat or make a stir, that we come forward with enough love and compassion and awareness consistently enough that we start to generate new ways of being and interacting with people, and it begins to create a new reality around us. So the circuitry that I'm speaking about are neurosynapses in the brain and the nervous system, the way that we've always thought about it. But there is a system in our overall being that is more important than our nervous system. It is the system that built the nervous system, and it is the electromagnetic energy. In the quantum science world, that's what they would call it. In the world of spirituality, they would call it spirit. And it's the same thing. It's this invisible energy that is everywhere, that ultimately determines or that is the presence, the essence of life itself. And so we can manage and maneuver and work with it, as quantum science is showing us, and as spirituality was actually trying to tell us, not religion, but the true spirituality of thousands of years ago. They knew, and they were onto this, and they were working with this constantly. The development of consciousness from Egypt and India and even into the Greek mythology, all of this symbolism it's not just symbolism. There are stories of instructions of how to go about mastering this, and the byproduct, what happens in your life when you do. And so it's an amazing new world that humanity is waking to right now.
It's very
And
exciting.
yes, what we're waking to is something that is, it is our birthright. It is our intention and our reason for being. And we're here waking up to, remembering that level of power that we have, that we possess, in terms of being our own healer, or being the creator and the generative power in our life, in our entire life experience.
I love that. I see you in Egypt. I see you on Instagram and your beautiful
Yeah.
trips to Egypt. And I was really
Yeah.
fascinated by the discoveries and the connection in with the wisdom there, and fascinating. And so can you share, I'm thinking people listening to this, can you share, like, what are some signs that we're out of alignment? What are some signs that our energy could do with some love to do this awakening of the healer within? And what have you seen become possible for people that you've worked with physically, mentally, emotionally, in terms of healing, just so that people see, where they might stand now, and what is really possible from examples of things that you've seen?
Absolutely. People don't have any idea that they can come down off of medications. They don't have any idea that they can prevent surgical procedures. They have no idea that if they'll just learn how to work through something, instead of going to the doctor and they take an x-ray and they need an MRI and they tell you need a hip replacement, so we just go and do that. I have worked with many people that have had those kinds of diagnoses, prognoses, and recommendations that have turned and worked with things differently. They've worked with the energy. They've worked with building the circuitry in their body that will allow for, even if there's degeneration in a joint, it allows for energy to flood into that area that should have been there all along. And the fact that the energy wasn't flowing through that area because of some past belief system or some past incident where we shut down some of our circuits, and it shut off some of the energies going to certain areas of the body. And then the joint wears out, then the osteophytes get started, then we take an x-ray and it looks degenerative and we tell you have to replace the hip. And au contraire, what people are doing is learning to turn on the energy in that same area. And even if there's degeneration in the joint, the fact that the energy is now robust in the joint allows that energy to be a pad of light, literally, between the bones. What people don't realize is that there's supposed to be a pad of light between every joint in your body, and even between your feet and the ground, and even between plants and the roots and the soil. There's actually a space of light between the roots and the soil, that actually everything is growing in light. Everything is working and developing and operating in light. I write about this in my book, The Energy Codes. And so we don't know that stuff because we're just discovering it. And we were raised by people who were raised by people who were raised that didn't know that, right? So here we are in this new discovery and recognizing that, wow, so the light, which is energy, just the highest vibration of energy is light, and a lower vibration of energy is our physical body. We span the whole spectrum. We are light, which is the light of our own consciousness, our own ability to think and to perceive. We are energy that is awake, and that pure light is compressing and compressing and compressing and compressing itself all the way down to physical form. Well, we live in that full spectrum. We are all of that. but we don't pay any attention to being able to use that high vibrational energy of pure light to infuse it more consciously into the density of our physical bodies. So when we get an x-ray and a diagnosis and a prognosis and get told to go and do these things, it's just what we do because we don't know anything else to do. I have personally healed a scoliosis in my own body. And as some of it took a couple of years, but the whole thing just unwound. A scoliosis is an abnormal curvature in the spine. And as it began to unwind, my whole pelvis began to rearrange because it's the foundation of that whole thing. When my pelvis was rearranging, I had hip pain in my left hip like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it was the same as anyone I know would have gone to the doctor and said, tell me what to do here because this is debilitating. This is unbelievable. And I didn't do that because I had also, in addition to healing the scoliosis in my body, I had healed 2 fractures without traditional means of casting the bones. And so I knew that the body was incredibly capable of healing some things that we just don't give it credit for. Now, if we're not taking a traditional means, we have to know what we're doing in other means in order to manage these situations. I'm not just saying, just don't do anything. Because we have to get the energy running through the body the way it's supposed to be running through the body so that the body can start healing itself as it was built and intended to do. And so I've had so many people go through so many things similar to what I did. I stuck with it. I implemented the things that I'm practicing and teaching people, and it got better. And it took quite a while, but it got better until the other one started hurting. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to finish? And I started doing the practices on the other hip. And the next thing I knew, there was a harmony. Big clunks and shifts were happening. The bones would pop, the joints would pop when I would get out of the car or get onto my yoga mat and do my thing. And I knew that what was happening was rearrangement and perfecting of the foundation of my being was occurring. My whole system was healing. And I've been teaching these things to other people. I've had so many students go through these kinds of things. Now I have greater strength and greater flexibility in both of my hips than I ever had. I remember in junior high having pain in my hip. Every time I took a step, it would click and click and click. I remember walking down the hall and people would say, what's that you? What's going on? What is that noise? And it's completely gone and rearranged, et cetera. So in many different ways, this will show up. It's not just structural. It is chemical. We have people that have had chronic degenerative diagnoses. We've had diabetes and eyesight prescriptions improving. And we've had so many allergies and asthma just shifting and headaches galore, rearranging, and people's personalities. It works also on a mental and emotional level because it's about all of us. And, tendencies toward depression and even suicidal tendencies and people with anxiety. Once they start to realize how it all fits together and we don't shy away, but we lean in and we start learning how to build the circuitry and embracing these higher principles of who we really are. We're quantum beings. The quantum science level, that realm of reality is ours for the managing. It's just that no one taught us how to do that because before the electron microscope, we didn't even know it existed to try to become masterful of it. So we were just making assumptions that this is the way it is. I was born with this. My mother had it. My grandmother had it. It's the way it's going to be. And we just accepted things without really investigating them. And now we have greater tools to investigate even more deeply. And we have the ability to shift these expressions. Think about it like this. The physical body and your physical life is the caboose on a train, and the quantum world is the engine on the train. And we have surgeries and medications and all kinds of things in between, right? And what we're saying is, here's another really important, significant tidbit. In the quantum world, you don't have to go all the way up the train car by car by car. You don't have to go through the medication. When the medication fails, go to the surgeries. When the surgeries fail, go to God and try to just pray for it. It's not that way. In the quantum world, you can go from the caboose to the engine like that. You can just be there. You just have to start learning how to live and how to breathe and how to think and how to perceive and how to build the circuitry to express that, how to infuse your whole being in what it is that you're becoming aware of. Now, I just want to say this lastly. I'm talking fast because I want to share a lot in a short period of time. And I don't want it to seem fantastical. I don't want it to seem like just rattling all this stuff off, and I don't know what this woman is talking about. Everything that I'm telling you is based in science. It's based in experience and clinical application and real world applications with lots of students in this entire community that I've been working with for more than 20 years directly in this specific conversation. And so it is a very real thing. And while it might be very foreign and it might seem too good to be true, that's the point. We haven't been shown our magnificence and what our capacities are. We haven't been shown religiously. We haven't been shown medically. And what's happening is people are waking up to it regardless of what we've been taught and told. People are discovering these things. I had no agenda. I certainly wasn't interested in speaking against any kind of system out there that has taught us and held us together for so many years. But these things started awakening in me, and I couldn't ignore them. I couldn't deny them. I was healing things that I was born with. And 40 years into my life, I still had this scoliosis. And so why was it changing? Why was it healing? Why were my migraine headaches going away? What was going on? I couldn't ignore it. I certainly didn't want to deny it. I wanted to celebrate it. And the very next thing that I wanted to do was share it with people. And so those that are interested and ready and feel like, what do I got to lose? I might as well investigate and look into it, end up finding that the principles work for them too, because we're all made of the same thing. We're all made in the same way. And this is at the bottom line, the foundational piece of our very existence. So that's a lot. Big
No,
answer to your
it's
question.
not a lot. It's so fabulous. I believe that when we are meant to hear something, we hear it, we land with what we need when we need it. People that are listening to this are not here by mistake.
Yeah.
The science is so strong around it. Anyone who even scratches the surface is just overwhelmed by the volume of clear evidence for what you're talking about. What I also really encourage people to do is listen to how their heart is reverberating the fact that this is truth. Because our cellular memory, our spirit does not forget the truth. We go to sleep inside this life, right? So I often find myself when I'm listening to you, whether it's during one of your events or whatever it is, just nodding along. It's like my whole body's just going, yes, 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 at all the levels. Because it's not always an intellectual thing. These people gravitate in and they do this work with you because they feel in their gut and in their knowingness that there is power and truth inside of this. So specifically around community and the devotion to it and the patience and the doing the, awakening the circuitry, how can people find you? And we've got a free gift for them. We're going to put a link with this video to one of your awakening meditations, which I highly encourage people to have. I've got multiple of your awakening meditations, which are wonderful. But how can they connect in with you to get started on this journey, other than we'll put this link for the meditation?
Beautiful. So we have a new program that I've put together called The Art of Awakening. That is this. It is the introductory place to start for people to kind of listen to what I've just been saying. I talk a little slower and I walk you through it and I give you examples and I give lots and lots of techniques and ways that we can start to physically implement this and infuse this into our own system so that we can open a little bit more and then anchor and ground that and then open a little bit more and so forth. The program is designed for that. You can come to my website, drsuemorter.com. It's drsuemorter.com. And we're building a new website. You can look at what's there right now, but revisit us often. It will be launching very soon. That will be even simpler and more exciting ways to kind of explore this whole world, because my entire world is devoted to the education. The entire institute for bioenergetics that I founded has 3 schools, and it is completely devoted to opening and training you in all sorts of ways. There's a school of higher consciousness, which is what we're speaking about now. And there is a school of energy medicine, which teaches you how to implement these things in healing modalities that are tried and true practices that my father taught doctors around the world in his lifetime, and way ahead of the curve. And here we are carrying that on and developing it further. And then there's the school of body awake yoga, which is about anchoring our consciousness in the body while we're taking the body through different yoga poses. And if you're not a yogi, it doesn't matter. There are chair versions of it and simple introductory versions of it that are just teaching you how to build this circuitry in your system of higher consciousness in a way that has you knowing the truth of who you are, instead of being this reactive, protective, guarded personality that is afraid and trying so hard to be a good person and do the right thing, and things aren't coming together for you. I was there. That was me. And so I know what it takes to move from that to the next step, to the next step, and to the next, and to the next, until we land in this deep core truth of who we are that is powerful and magnificent and beautiful and full and whole and complete and capable of healing things we had no idea that we could, because no one was really showing us. So all of it is right here for you. Pretty easy to find. drsuemorter.com. Yeah.
drsuemorter.com. I'll put the link below the video. I'll put the gift to the awakening meditation below the video. Thank you for pioneering this, for carrying it on from this amazing lineage that you've had that brought this into the world. The people in my community that know you adore you like I do. And I'm so grateful for your time, for being here. I'll make sure that people are coming your way for all that you're doing. I saw a sneak peek that you have your podcast. You had mentioned that there's a Art of Awakening podcast coming. You've got your Art of Awakening program. People can dive in so many beautiful ways with you. It's a pleasure to have been here with you today, and I'm so grateful for your time.
It's a great joy, Bernadette, and thank you so much for what you're doing and gathering people in this type of conversation. It is the most important thing that we can do. It is a way that we can not only heal and survive in what seems to be such a chaotic time, it is a way that we can take that chaos and turn it into creativity and reinvent ourselves as a human species. And so thank you for what you're doing to bring us together in these ways. Very important. Bless you.
Thank you.
Man.
Thanks for listening to Practical Spirituality with B. I'll talk to you next episode for more spiritual advice for your everyday life, helping you align with your soul so you can live with purpose, fulfillment, and magic.